Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. The propaganda that was run by state mandarins about Djibouti candidate is a very clear testament that Kenya is not very serious with Raila Odinga's AUC race bid. And in this podcast, we are going to look at the behind-the-scene intrigues behind it and why the casual handling of Raila Odinga's bid really is a disaster for that race. Kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell and like our videos. Remember, we are supporting our late brother Charles so that the body can be taken home for burial. In December, we did an appeal here, an urgent appeal to support Charles here. Was admitted in private hospital with meningitis, but then we supported because the bill was overwhelming there. Then he was transferred to Mama Lucy. But by God's plan, by God's will, you cannot stop. Charles died. For the last 1 month, that body is still lying in the mortuary, in the morgue, with little prospects of last burial rites. So the son reached out to us, and as Team Bold, we reached out. I talked to the family and I told them that on Friday tomorrow, we'll be able to support our Team Bold Foundation. We'll be able to give them a check of 100,000 so that they can get done with it. They can take the body of our late brother Charles to Seme for burial. Now, kindly, let's support that. I want to say thank you. As I talk to you, I think the only deficit we have is around 28,000. We'll be sending this money, we'll be handing over this money tomorrow morning. So we only have today until better part of the night. Then tomorrow morning, we will be giving them that money at around midday. So kindly, let's support. I believe that tukijaza hiyo kidogo kidogo, we'll be able to top up that deficit so that we can support them na waweze kupeleka mwili ya Charles wazike. I think the family really needs to give it a closure. And I want to say thank you. We supported both who supported in December and those who supported now. That is why we say we are just beyond politics. A suspicious fake news flyer was actually went round on social media as Kenya had proposed a whopping 6 billion for the Djibouti candidate to step out of the race. Something that did not go well with the Djibouti, the team from Djibouti. Now, I was trying to just have some political, just try to ask some question around it. And I asked one diplomat about, is there a prospect, is there a possibility that one country can bribe another one so that they step out? And the response was very clear that this is a high-stake diplomatic job. This is not some parastatal job where you, that flyer was supposed to be foreign affairs team. But the fact that Musalia Mudavadi's office and even neither Raila Odinga's secretariat flagged that 6 billion, that flyer about 6 billion, it's a very clear testament that probably Kenya is testing waters. In fact, it's just showing how desperate the President Ruto is keen on Raila Odinga getting that bid. Now, those are not, that in fact, he actually says that that is not even allowed, that you're not even allowed to be bribed. That aspect of the bribe is not there. And then Kenya and Djibouti are from, those two are coming from two different cultures. Probably Kenya will normalize the fact that if someone is vying, you give him money so that he steps down. But they don't work in some cultures. They don't work in some corporate cultures. For example, in Djibouti, probably a description of what is a wealthy man here is not their description. So one might think that money is everything, but in this might not it. But the fact that Nairobi team was tight-lipped, were quiet on this proposal of 6 billion is showing that probably there was a deeper hand in it. Now, remember, I realized one thing. There are two things that happened yesterday. William Ruto and the team brought up this narrative at a time the day the Gen Z team were in Citizen and they were injecting around against Raila.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be talking about Raila.
But let me say something about that.
No.
I will say something about that. Wanjira, you will be disciplined on this show. So that
I am very disciplined. It is you bringing Raila into this conversation.
So let me say this about Raila.
He betrayed us.
Okay, hold on. Wanjira, do you feel betrayed?
Yeah, absolutely. We were not on the streets for ODM to get positions. We were on the streets to get good governance in this country. And had Raila joined us, we would be having a very different conversation right now. So we cannot start bringing him here and talking about how he was not respected. I don't know what. All of that history, honestly, was rubbished the day he betrayed the Gen Z movement. History will not absolve him. That happened when he was fighting Moi and whatnot, but when the people needed him, he turned his back on the people. There is no forgetting that. And also, when you talk about discipline from the young people, I think the Gen Zs have been absolutely disciplined in defending the dignity of the Kenyan people. That is the discipline we need to talk about. They have absolutely fought tooth and nail that the Constitution of Kenya is respected and upheld, that human rights are respected and upheld, that the Constitution is what dictates the politics of the country. And when Farah Malim comes and say, I'm going to kill 5,000 Gen Zs, when somebody says, if you give me 3 days, all of that happens, and then we want to look at the indiscipline of the people. What about the indiscipline of the oppressors? Who really should be talking about indiscipline from the other? And we are tired of even being labeled, or our children, they don't respect our elders. Where we come from, elders earn respect. I respect you because you are respectful and you deserve my respect.
So this was an injection, There was one thing about Wanjiru, and by the way, most of us don't want to accept. Raila have had his good spell in Kenyan politics, and even by the time he went for handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta, there's some of his members of some of his support base that felt a matter of betrayal, but he got away with it and he was able to work around because Uhuru Kenyatta looked very genuine, and in fact, the handshake between Uhuru and Raila was never on conditionalities. Now, I think that is the same thing that happened, but I think when it happened when Raila went to be with Ruto, amidst that Gen Z protest, that now cuts across the tribal base. So while even Raila's base might say, oh, Baba Menda Koruto says fine, but then it is not going to be very easy for Raila Odinga to get out and to shed that betrayal, to shed out that narrative of betrayal over the Gen Z protest. Remember, Wanjiru is not aligned towards Raila. Even if Raila makes a political comeback, the damage has been caused, and it's not very guaranteed that it's going to get away with it. It's not so guaranteed that it's going to get away with it. Now, at the same time, the president is in Western Kenya. And by the way, I just realized what Ruto is doing in Ruto should just leave Western Kenya and come back to State House and work. He should just leave those campaigns and come back here and work, because 2 years down the line, you cannot still be launching. So yesterday, he launched a market in Luanda, then did another, I don't know, a level 5 hospital in Kakamega, and then went back. Today is back in Busia again, and even yesterday he was in Busia. So if you ask me, the president is campaigning. There's nothing so serious going on there. Those are just political campaigns. So one of the things that probably I have realized, and this comes to be, is when William Ruto is in the Western wing, he's just using that Raila Odinga's bid as the campaign narrative.
No. Hebu nione kama mko sawa. Na sawa ni sawa. Asante sana. Mimi nataka tu nitaje point moja tu, nichukulie pahali president amezungumzia. Yeye walikuwa na competition na Raila. Na yeye ndio yuko kwa mstari wa mbele kutetea kwamba mawiki kama matatu hivi Raila atakuwa chairman wa AUC. nataka niwaulize, hiyo ni roho ya chuki ama ya upendo? Roho ya nini? Roho ya nini? Sasa pia nataka niwaulize, unajua Raila pia alicheza mchezo kama player hatari, lazima tukubali, si ndio? Na Ruto akakuwa upande huu mwingine, si namna hiyo? Sasa ilikuwa bampa kwa bampa, si namna hiyo? Sasa mimi nataka ni mundu mkumundu, nataka niwaulize swali langu la mwisho, alafu nimwalike mwenzangu naye kuja kusema. Sasa wewe mtu wa Nasewa, wewe mtu wa Busia, wewe mtu wa Kenya, ikiwa sasa Tinga ameingia AUC na Mheshimiwa Ruto amebaki, mimi nataka uniambie kwa Kiluya, no henza ororamo sasa undi ari horu enuru Aveho
that you need to support me because I'm going to support Raila Odinga for the African Union Commission bid. Now that is the gospel that his team were actually preaching there. So you would understand why they wanted to increase the stakes. They wanted to tell those people there that of course the state is doing its best so that they can support Raila. Now even as we rushed this narrative, one of the most astonishing things about it is the Djibouti team were actually in Tanzania. They arrived in Tanzania yesterday, Wednesday evening, and they're supposed to hold meetings with Samia Suluhu. I've just seen their tweet here. Tonight we arrived in Dar es Salaam. This tweet was done yesterday on Wednesday evening. On Wednesday evening, in Dar es Salaam with Minister Mahmoud Ali Yusuf and Ambassador Abdi Haibe. Tomorrow, a strategic meeting with President Samia Suluhu Hassan to strengthen positive momentum for our campaign. The team that we are saying we are bribing to step down were actually campaigning in Tanzania. So look at how we are really not getting it right. That propaganda is very unnecessary, to say the least. Now, this race is not as casual as Kenya is taking it. And one thing about AUC is I normally really try to ask. I am not a specialist in this space, but I thank God that over 99,000 subscribers that we have here, we have quite a number that are into the diplomatic space, and they really help us put up points together. Now, we have been advising Raila, and the diplomats are saying Raila's chance in clinching that seat is there and is very promising. But the local political stakes in the AUC race risk affecting that bid. The local political antics we are putting in it does not sit pretty well. And the moment we continue doing this, we are not helping that. We ran a propaganda, and even Raila Odinga was in Algeria for campaigns. There have been reports that Raila will be guaranteed this race, will be guaranteed this seat if he officially merges ODM with the UDA, so that ODM fully supports UDA. But I think Raila's team have insisted, and even Raila Odinga have insisted, that they're not going to make that. So whatever it comes, and that is why the other day, the statements by Raila and Nyanza that even if he doesn't get it, he will still come back and arudi nyumbani, they were all informed by this pressure, because this pressure was coming from serious quarters within Ruto's handlers that Raila Odinga needed to fold ODM to join the UDA, then the state will be guaranteed of his support. Now, there are three factors I wanted that have already been brought forth, and I also want to get your interpretation about this. The Sahel countries, Raila Odinga is yet to visit any of the Sahel countries. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and several others. The Sahel countries may not be voting in this election. They may not be voting this election because AUC is saying that African Union does not recognize power through the military coups. But I normally read double speak in that, because in Zimbabwe, the coup, the African Union was soft on Mnangagwa, who did a coup against Robert Mugabe. So in there it is there they accept, but and even what is happening in South Sudan, they're not fight, but they have been accepted in it. And even Tanzania, even Somalia is having a fight with Somaliland. The same thing happening in Morocco. So the treatment of Sahel nations. But then this is what is it. The Sahel countries, especially Burkina Faso President Traore, is the Russian point man in the continent. The Russia point man in the African continent is actually Traore. Now, in this context, it's really believed that while the Sahel nations are not going to vote, but they are vouching for the Djibouti candidate who had pledged re-inclusion, or rather is having a clear point on addressing those countries that are undergoing military coups, that have changed power through military. And the continent, and I think the African continent, will not continue to show rage and discomfort with the military coups, because that seems to be the population of the continent is largely now the young people. The number is increasing, and you can see when Traore was in Ghana for the swearing in of the Ghana new president, he received a bigger reception than any other African president. So I think the continent must be alive to this fact. Now, because William Ruto and the Kenyan country had a stand that they don't recognize military coup as a way of taking over power, of course, they don't want to associate with it, Raila Odinga has not been able to navigate through that space. The Djibouti candidate is having a roadmap on reintegrating the Sahel nations into the African Union. Now, someone will say, why? They don't vote, but it is Traore that is the Russian blue-eyed boy in the continent. So whichever facilitation or whichever support or whichever agenda of Russia in this would come boldly by supporting. So it is high time that we, even if Raila thinks otherwise, but we must navigate through that space. You cannot keep quiet about it, because it is a matter that is here. If the continent is to undergo one major overhaul, it will be done by the young people, and the military might take over. Even Kenya the other day, that was happening. Now, the other factor is France is facing hostility from West Africa. And the West African countries are knocking out France from their countries. They are also looking for a candidate in the continent that would punish those countries that is chasing them, so that those countries don't adapt. So with that, you must they want AU access to impoverize and isolate the countries that are knocking them out after the military coups. So you understand the complex factors why when someone is having a narrative of we paid so and so, if Kenya can say pay 6 billion, then how much can Russia pay? You understand why this casual handling is something that is not sitting pretty well. Now, lastly, Mahmoud is a sitting foreign affairs minister. He's moving across the continent with a full government support, full government ministers, security and everything, and the state to state, and he's campaigning on behalf of state to state. Raila Odinga is moving across the continent with Makau Mutua. No single person from the Kenyan government, and this one people are saying it's a big blunder. Even when Uhuru Kenyatta was campaigning for Amina Mohammed, it was a full cabinet. The ministers, they were activated. They are the ones that were accompanying these fellows to go and campaign. Now, the profile of Raila Odinga's visit with Makau Mutua and the profile of Mahmoud visit with state officials and ambassadors, there is a difference. I don't know what you think. Now, Kenya handling of Raila's AUC bid by local politics is a big disaster because of this. Raila loss will be a big backlash on the president, despite of other factors that might have contributed to that. If Raila loses, it might not be because he's the worst candidate or because he's not performed well, but there are other factors like what I have mentioned to you that are actually controlling this vote. But the way William Ruto has invested his emotions around it and using it to handle local politics is saying, I'm supporting Raila so that you come back and support me. So if you don't, Raila doesn't get it based on other factors, Ruto will actually carry the blame. The second issue is this. It brings the character assassination of Raila Odinga by the disgruntled Kenyans. The people who may be not supporting Raila Odinga, and they're not supporting because Raila is bad, they're not supporting because Raila is associating with William Ruto, who is actually another unpopular candidate. So this also contributes, but I know you will tell me and you will agree with me that probably this does not have a bigger chunk of deciding who the continent is going to vote. But key is this. Then the East African countries are privy to the Ruto interest in Raila Odinga's bid. Tanzania knows that Ruto wants Raila out so that he can get his term. Uganda knows that. Somalia knows that. Burundi knows that. Malawi knows that. East Africa, so we must be very careful. For example, these speeches by Ruto is making in Busia, a lot of other, Somalia is getting those speeches, Uganda is getting, Tanzania is getting. So much of it is packaged as a continental job, but countries, East African countries, because the vote voting might actually not be, it's actually open with secret voting. They might not even vote for Raila Odinga. And lastly, it exposes Ruto hypocrisy on the broad-based government agreement. It looks like there are a lot of conditionalities. And that is why there is a misfit in how we are doing it. Thank you guys. Let's support this and kindly support us so that we can support the family. We'll give them a check of 100,000. We are on a deficit of 28,000 so that kesho, kidogo kidogo tukijaza kesho, tutaweza kusaidia. Asanteni.